Hello and welcome to Business Daily. I'm Lee in Seoul. Let's get started with a look at today's highlights. Korea's finance minister dismisses concerns about the impact of North Korea's nuclear threats on the local economy, stressing the country's strong fundamentals. A report by the World Economic Forum says Korea is one of the few advanced economies that have experienced a general decline in its labor market performance. We'll sit down with an expert to talk about this. But first, Korea's consumer prices jumped 2.1% on year in September, rising more than 2% for the third straight month. Statistics Korea says the gain was owed to higher petroleum prices and the low base effect due to a nationwide discount on electric bills last year. Although skyrocketing vegetable prices have waned following a hot and wet summer, the price of fresh fruits rose 21.5% on year. In response, the statistics agency called for measures to stabilize prices ahead of the Chuseok holiday next week. Some of the best deals of the year are going on offer today here in Korea. An annual shopping festival, the Korea Sale Festa, has begun and will run through October 31st. The event is sponsored by the government, and some 350 retailers are offering huge discounts of up to 80%. It was set up to boost domestic consumption and the economy, and looking at last year's figure alone, the event brought about a 0.13 percentage point growth in fourth quarter GDP. The government hopes this year will be as successful, if not more, given that it's being held for the longest period yet. But watchers are not so optimistic, as many Koreans are likely to travel abroad during the 10-day Chuseok holiday that starts this weekend. The finance minister says the Korean economy is stable enough to fight off geopolitical risks stemming from North Korea's military provocations. But he says the government will keep a close eye on possible negative effects and plans to unveil a series of measures aimed at boosting innovative growth. Our Kim Ji-yeon reports.
Speaking at an economic meeting held Thursday, Finance Minister Kim Dong-yeon said the South Korean economy has strong fundamentals to withstand geopolitical risks posed by North Korean missile and nuclear provocations. Although Pyongyang's threats may have spooked foreign investors to sell South Korean stocks, Kim said the economic impact from such geopolitical risks will be temporary when taking into account South Korea's record-high foreign exchange reserves of $384.8 billion and superb credit ratings.
South Korea's exports in September is expected to have risen for the 11th consecutive month by a margin of more than 20%, and facility investment has recorded double-digit growth for 9 months in a row.
Despite the reassurances, Kim said local financial authorities will closely monitor foreign markets, even during the Chuseok Korean Thanksgiving holiday, to respond immediately when necessary. The finance minister said the government will unveil a comprehensive set of measures next month to revitalize the country's venture capital firms and to strengthen competitiveness of local industries. The minister also said the government will announce a separate set of measures to boost small and medium-sized companies by the end of this year. He also said the government will inject an additional $1.6 billion to promote job creation. Kim Ji-yeon, Business Daily.
Some good news for local businesses that were badly affected by China's THAAD retaliations, as they are due to receive more support from the government. At an economic meeting earlier today, Finance Minister Kim Dong-yeon said the government will not collect taxes from the affected firms for up to 9 months. The government will also provide $43.7 million worth of emergency support to auto component makers, which relies heavily on exports to China. The minister added the government plans to unveil measures to boost competitiveness of the local auto industry by the end of this year. U.S. President Donald Trump has proposed a wide-ranging tax cut plan, which he calls the largest tax cuts in American history. Speaking at an event in the U.S. state of Indiana on Wednesday, Trump said he wanted to make the tax code simpler and fairer for all Americans. He also added the benefits would be focused on the middle class, not the highest income earners. The proposal calls for simplifying the 7 existing tax bands to just 3 while cutting the top marginal tax rate by nearly 15%. Corporate taxes would be slashed from 35% to 20%. The dollar and U.S. bond yields rose following the announcement, which pressured emerging market currencies and dragged down Asian equities. With the U.S. Federal Reserve announcing it will begin reducing its balance sheets next month, the potential repercussions of this move is raising concerns here in Korea as well. Our Lee Joo-young has more.
October may be the month that quantitative easing implemented by major central banks around the world may be coming to a gradual end. For one, there's a European central bank that's likely to announce a reduction of its large monthly bond purchases, while the Bank of England is expected to raise its benchmark interest rate. The U.S. central bank has also said that it would begin to trim its balance sheet from October and possibly raise the benchmark interest rate again in December. If that were to happen, rates in the U.S. would be higher than that of Korea's for the first time in a decade, which may cause foreign investment funds to escape to a large extent. But what would be more daunting is that Korea may also be forced to hike its lending rates in the long term, which in turn would increase the burden to borrowers with weak repayment ability. In addition, lackluster consumption activities could also slow down the recovery momentum. While the Bank of Korea admits that the U.S. Federal Reserve's belt-tightening could trigger rate hikes in the long term, the central bank remains optimistic, saying it's likely to have a limited impact on Korea's economy. The BOK added that North Korea's missile and nuclear programs are likely to trigger more volatility in Korea's financial markets, and geopolitical risk will play a bigger role in determining future rate policies. Lee Joo-young, Business Daily.
Just yesterday, we reported on the World Economic Forum's Global Competitiveness Report and how Korea was one of the few advanced economies that have experienced a general decline in labor efficiency and financial market development. So let's take a closer look at Korea's labor market and what changes need to be made to improve its competitiveness.
The World Economic Forum has released its Global Competitiveness rankings, and Korea ranked 26th. Unchanged from last year. However, the country was seen lagging behind in certain areas, ranking 73rd in labor market efficiency and 74th in financial market development. The news has put Korea's labor and financial markets under the spotlight, especially with the government abolishing 2 controversial labor guidelines this week. The administrative guidelines introduced in January last year under the former Park Geun-hye administration had made it possible for firms to fire underperforming workers and change corporate rules without workers' approval. The abolition of these guidelines come as part of the Moon Jae-in government's efforts to improve labor conditions and dialogue between businesses, labor, and the government. So what are some of the issues that need to be addressed in the country's labor market, and what changes can we expect in the near future? Let's find out.
And to tell us more about this, Professor Kim Se-won from Ewha Women's University joins us in the studio today. Good to see you.
Pleasure to be here.
All right, so according to the World Economic Forum report, Korea's rigid labor conditions is hindering the country's competitiveness. Now, what does this mean, and how would you assess Korea's current labor market conditions?
The low level of efficiency in the labor market means that 2 participants of the labor market, employers and employees, are experiencing problems in buying and selling the labor. And that became a major problem in further developing Korean economy. So that became a major problem in the long-lasting Korean economy today.
Now, the WEF also noted that Korea needs to increase its labor market flexibility. What does it mean by that?
The more flexible labor market means that the 2 market participants, companies and workers, have more freedom in the labor market. For example, the companies can hire and lay off their workers at any time they want. And the workers can search and find their jobs at any time they want. But get back to reality of the Korean labor market, the companies are not allowed to lay off their workers even under bankruptcy situation. Also, workers, when they are unemployed or lose their jobs, it became more difficult to be hired by another companies.
Now, going back a little bit, what impact did previous administration's labor reforms have on the labor market conditions right now?
Actually, former government pursued quite a few labor market policies. For example, putting off retirement, peak salary system, and more flexible hiring and laying off. But the main purpose of these policies are related to raising young people's employment. But unfortunately, they were not successful at all because the young peoples in their early 10s and 20s, unemployment has been increased from 9% of the 4 years ago and 11% of today.
Now, like we heard in the report, what are your thoughts on the recent government's decision to do away with the two controversial labor guidelines?
I think that one of the most important principles of enforcing government policy is consistency. But the new labor market guidelines has been only given 2 years ago, not too long ago. So given that situation, the two market participants, employers and employees, are confused and they have to pay costs for adjusting in the new situation. I think the new government wanted to induce the labor unions or workers' party to take more parts in the three-party talk between governments, employers, and employees.
And now, there are others who are opposing this move, saying that abolishing these guidelines would eventually lead to more low labor flexibility.
Right. If they really think like that, particularly the company people or employers, they have to clearly deliver their intention to governments. But I think on purpose, they are avoiding that kind of speech, not to have an edge with the new governments. The same is true for the labor union or workers' party. So the main job of the government at these circumstances is, after having the intentions of both parties, workers' parties and employers' party, compromising the two extremes effectively and fairly.
So how can we turn Korea's labor market challenges into a perhaps new opportunity?
It is extremely point of time for further economic growth of the Korea. In the circumstances, the first condition is having efficiently working and flexible labor market. But much more important condition for that is, before that is, having well-organized social security system, like a labor unemployed insurance system and so on for unemployed and low-income people.
Let's hope to see more of that in the future. Thank you so much for coming in today.
Thank you very much.
Korea has discovered a way to stabilize local rice supplies while also contributing to world food security. Identifying rice oversupply as a chronic issue, Prime Minister Lee Nak-yeon said the National Assembly will approve Korea's membership to the Food Aid Convention. Once finalized, the country will ship at least 50,000 tons of rice, worth some $40 million to developing countries every year. Some 300,000 tons of excess rice was seen in the country last year, with Koreans eating less rice amid changing dietary habits. Kazakhstan is a landlocked country in Central Asia with abundant oil and natural gas reserves. It also enjoys a geographical advantage as a gateway between China and Europe, linking east and west along the fabled Silk Road. And our Kim Hae-sung has more on the role that Kazakhstan can play as one of the world's key trading hubs.
Deserts and a sea of endless peaks of the snow-topped Tian Shan Mountains. It's the Silk Road, an ancient trade route connecting the East and West. And now, a revival. One of the last sections of the Western Europe-Western China highway linking China, Kazakhstan, and Russia has been completed this September. With the new road open, now it takes about 4 hours by car from Almaty to Horgoz, Kazakhstan's border with China. The highway is part of the One Belt, One Road initiative proposed by China in 2013 to recreate the Silk Road by connecting land and seaports, covering more than 60 countries that account for a third of the world's GDP. The 130-hectare Horgos Gateway, lying at the heart of Eurasia, is the second largest dry port in the world. Here at the Horgos Gateway, 4 to 5 trains from China arrive every day, shipping all kinds of goods ranging from food to the latest consumer electronics. While the highway is awaiting completion in Russia to officially begin operation, trains have already started shuttling goods between China and Germany along the 11,000-kilometer-long rail route. Shipping them via sea lanes takes up to 50 days, but using the railway requires only around 15 days, increasing transport efficiency. Once the highway connecting China and Russia is open, road travel between the continents is expected to take around 10 days. Having processed 2 million tons of cargo last year, the Horgos dry port is working to handle more.
Our main goal is to become a regional logistic hub. By the 2020, we will reach the project capacity, which is 540,000 TEUs per year.
Horgos is also becoming a thriving commercial market of its own. At the shared free trade zone, Kazakh and Chinese people can cross the border without a visa and buy goods at thousands of stores, including food, clothes, and even Korean cosmetics, tax-free.
I come here from China every day. It's visited by more than 10,000 people a day. Over the last 3 years, sales have doubled almost every year.
Free flow of goods and people. For Kazakhstan, the 9th largest country in the world, the One Belt, One Road initiative is an opportunity to diversify its economy.
Landlocked country before, it was very difficult. It's because of the decrease of the cost of logistical cost. The other sectors of economy, as a manufacturing, becoming very attractive for the foreign direct investment.
And companies like Dongseong are hitching a ride on the boom.
We commissioned a third of the road connecting Almaty and Horgos. Kazakhstan is developing rapidly, and with more infrastructure projects underway, there are more opportunities for Korean companies to do business here.
Following the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991, countries in Eurasia that used to be isolated are slowly reconnecting with the world. At a time when the global economy is slowing down, the new Silk Road won't just make transportation more efficient and increase exchanges of goods and energy resources, it will also drive the global economy and mark an important chapter of modern history.
The $1 trillion One Belt, One Road project is still in its initial stages, but a glimpse of that future is already being seen in Horgos, once again connecting the East and West as a vibrant transit hub. Kim Hae-sung, Business Daily, Horgos.
It's been a year since the much-talked-about Kim영란 law took effect here in Korea to crack down on corruption and bribery. Many people hold positive views on the changes that were brought about in uprooting unfair practices that had taken hold in all aspects of the Korean society. Others, however, say it has negatively affected businesses and the overall economy. So let's take a closer look at where we currently stand 1 year after the law was adopted.
Chuseok, one of Korea's biggest holidays, is just around the corner. This department store in Seoul is bustling with large crowds eager to buy gifts for their family and loved ones. Packaged gift sets like fresh Korean beef known as hanwoo, seasonal fruits, and local produce are some of the most popular Chuseok items. But this year, unique gift sets containing avocados and lobsters have been released as well. These products are attracting customers with their reasonable price tags. This year, there are many gift sets that are being sold for under 50,000 won, or roughly $44.
When it comes to Chuseok gift sets, one would usually think of dried yellow corvina or apples, but these gift sets feel original and unique. Also, it's priced under 50,000 won, so that's why I bought them.
A new anti-corruption law was adopted last year to prevent bribery among public officials. It is also known as the Kim영란 Act, named after a former Supreme Court justice who drafted the legislation. The law bans civil servants and journalists from accepting meals and gifts worth more than 30,000 won and 50,000 won respectively. With the new law in force, retailers have also expanded its lineup of gift sets priced at under 50,000 won this year, and sales have increased compared to 2016.
We included unique products like Iberico pork, crab, or avocado gift sets, all at under 50,000 won. Since we started taking pre-orders, those gift sets broke new records as sales grew more than 50%.
In the course of just 1 year, Korea's restaurant culture has also undergone significant change. You can easily find the so-called Kimyeongnan menus in many restaurants that are scrambling to lure more customers. The implementation of the anti-corruption law has also affected workers in the public sector. The once deeply rooted problems of power abuse, shady business transactions, and illicit personal favors have been curbed noticeably. Instead of lavish wining and dining, many workers are now eating at office cafeterias during lunchtime. The Korean public has also given positive feedback, with the new recent survey showing almost 70% of respondents had a favorable view of the anti-graft law's implementation.
I always had a hard time choosing gifts for my boss on traditional holidays, but now I don't have to, since the new law limits expenditures on dining and cash gifts. There's no unnecessary spending, so it's great.
Changes are also affecting private companies as well. There are signs of them moving away from customary business practices such as rebates and personal favors. The 10 trillion won worth of spending on entertainment is gradually decreasing. Meanwhile, some businesses sectors say their transactions have declined after the law took effect, as many companies now prefer doing business online or via smartphones.
영업사원들 입장에서도 본인의 경쟁력이 로봇이나 모바일로 경쟁이 아주 뛰어난 사람들과 경쟁을 하려면 이 사람들과 이모셔널 터치잖아요. 그러니까 그 사람들한테 어떻게 접근을 할지, 어떤 얘기를 할지, 감성적으로 어떤 접근을 할지.
The sale industry relies heavily on face-to-face business transactions. The anti-graft law enables workers to be evaluated purely by their performances and not by how they wine and dine their clients. Now the focus is on strengthening individual business skills.
Salespeople say acting classes before going to work help them better improve their voice quality, natural expression, and confidence.
Concerns are still rising in the agriculture and fishery industries, as well as the restaurant and flower businesses. Since many people are avoiding the exchange of small, unnecessary gifts like flowers, sales have dropped by 30% compared to the same period last year.
Sales have declined by more than 1/3 and more than 60% in the worst cases. Flower shops like ours, specializing in orchids, have seen a 70% fall in sales compared to last year.
Falling consumption is also weighing on overall domestic demand since the law took effect. One statistic showed more than half of small and medium firms in the country are facing declining sales. Some are urging the government to raise the price limit on gift giving to 100,000 won and to expand the anti-graft law to private sectors.
It's been a year since the anti-corruption law took effect, and Korea is still in the midst of an adjustment period. The government should take the path to deregulation rather than tightening the leash. In order to achieve this, the government needs to gather more opinions from the public and make detailed changes that is acceptable for everyone.
And that wraps it up for today. Thanks for watching. We'll be back tomorrow with more at the same time, same place for your Business Daily. Until then, goodbye.